Beginning with chapter 5 and going through the next few chapters, I think up to 9, we begin to see the 4 major market models, which is something you need to be aware of as a manager. So that all begins with a cost structure and the law of diminishing returns. The law of diminishing returns basically states that the more we put into something, the less we get out of it after a while. Think of it like studying. First couple of hours of studying are very productive. Third or fourth might be okay. By the 5th hour, you might, in a particular day, you might start to confuse yourself. Or exercise. Everything is economics is part of human nature, and human nature dictates that we marginally benefit ourselves if we do something to a certain extent, and then there comes a point where we peak, and then we get less out of it. So if you look at page 119, you got a simple production function. And this is, as we add quantity of capital to any project or any business, we're going to get output. And it could be one worker at a time. In the case of a McDonald's, they may measure marginality by 500 stores. Every 500 stores they might measure. It could be a trucking company that measures every time they add a truck. It could be anything where we add additional personnel or capital. And now, in this particular example, we're adding 10... every time we add either labor or capital, and I want you to pay close attention to this chapter, our total product increases. But it increases at a rate that increases for a while, peaks, and then decreases. And you see that in the average product, and you see that in the total product. So that, and how we measure that is through marginality. How as each additional unit of capital or labor increases our production, peaks, and then decreases the production. And we also see that in marginal product. So you should read this chapter very carefully, and we try to reduce everything to graphs in economics. So you start to see that in the top graph, our total product goes up, peaks, and then starts to diminish. And here we look at the relationship between marginal product and average product. Think of it like exams. When you get a better grade in each progressive exam, your average goes up. And then when you start to get lower grades, you drag your average down. In the case of businesses, their marginal product starts to increase as they add production of labor or capital. And then at one point, an additional unit of labor or capital has a diminishing effect. And that's when most curves will look this way. So for instance, like at a Starbucks, they may have an optimal amount of employees, like 5 or 6 employees. And then the store takes on as much customers as it can handle, and they kind of saturate the market for that particular area. And adding more clients or more machines or more space isn't going to help. It's not going to bring more clients in the door. That's when they decide to open up another store. That's how they make decisions based on that. Most small businesses never get to that point, but big businesses like Starbucks or Walmart or McDonald's, they get to that point where they've exhausted the area and they need to move somewhere else. So this is the idea of marginality and average production. This chart on table 5.2 is something you should pay attention to because it gives you the relationship between total product and average product. Once again, as your marginal product goes up, for instance, LeBron James, if he's averaging 40 points a night and he scores 42 the next night, he brings up his average. If he scores 38, he brings down his average. But in the case of economics, there's a point of diminishing returns. Okay, my next video will be on the total cost function, which is something we need to learn. We need to learn about the marginality and the cost structures if we're gonna get to the next point, which are the 4 major market models. Which, as a manager, you have to understand where your business falls within those market models. So you should be reading these chapters closely, and this is a little help to kind of point out what's important.